in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. With this is another special edition with Tractor Zoom, and I got Kyle McMahon back on here, and we are going to kind of kick around the idea of what we see happening right now in the marketplace with this whole coronavirus thing going on, and what if any effects we're seeing on the market. And so I guess the best way to start it out is Kyle. There's a ton of auctions going on. There's no lack of auctions by any means, and there's plenty of equipment out there that guys are messing with and looking to do some stuff with. So I guess open it up a little bit with what you see happening out there.
It's inventory galore. Our crew is working really hard with all the auctions going on. It seems like there's another 10 auctions that come up every single day that we're getting calls on that want to get broadcasted out there. Lot of inventory moved, and I guess as far as the coronavirus is concerned, it's pretty spotty out there. I'd say the trend is it's still a really strong market, but you look at states like Ohio, and they're basically banning gatherings of over 100 people. Yeah, I think Kansas is banning people over 1,000. We've got a guy down at the tractor pull down in Cowtown Showdown here this weekend, and I mean auctions in Ohio are literally getting delayed or canceled altogether. Yeah. But the ones that are going on, there's some strength out there.
Yeah. Okay, so all these,
which is contradicting what we might think of the coronavirus.
Right. So how many of these auctions that you see going on right now that have been, canceled or postponed or whatever they've got going on, how many of them have just elected to go to a straight up online platform?
So I don't have an exact number offhand of how many there are. I do know Ohio's been pretty effective with it. I've talked to auctioneers from Illinois to Missouri to Kansas, South Dakota, and Wisconsin today, and nothing directly in their areas, but I've talked with a couple of online bidding companies, and they're starting to see a little bit of pressure from that. On the flip side, they're also starting to see some new business guys who've sold all on site before saying, "Hey, I got a sale in a month. How do I figure out this online deal?"
Right. Yeah, so I got to think that there's going to be some slowdown in the auction market, not necessarily because I don't think demand's going to change any, because, quite frankly, I don't see the price of corn changing much, you know what I mean, or soybeans or anything. I mean, they've been getting kicked around, they'll gain it all one day and lose it all the next, and they're everything in between. Cattle prices are limit up and limit down and everything in between. Kind of like what we talked about earlier, it really feels like this was an extreme reaction to just some, these markets are all traded by algorithms anymore, so no one really knows how to program an algorithm for a pandemic and how they react to the global market. I mean, there's not anyone really leading those trades anymore. That's not a computer-driven thing. So the human emotion part of it is taken out, and there's a machine that's just kind of, if this happens, if these things happen, then this is what I need to do, and none of this stuff is written, so it doesn't know how to react to a global economy just kind of slow down in a matter of 4 days. So it just, all this stuff takes place and just goes crazy. This morning I was looking at a deal, and they were talking about the cruise lines and airlines and all that stuff that had gotten just pummeled for 2 straight days, and then today they were all up 35 and 40% from the day before. So I mean, it's things like that are just kind of this erratic thing. So any of the guys you talked to today that were kind of talking to you about the different things they see happen in the auction market, that they were kind of thinking that there might be a little bit of, not necessarily a slowdown in the sense that people are going to cancel auctions, but there might be a delay in getting these auctions up because more guys trying to figure out how to do a proxy bid type of online sell or something like that compared to just their normal live bids that they've done before?
Yeah, I mean, you look at 2019, obviously it was just no fun. Everybody's glad we're past it, but net farm income in 2019 was up. Yields were more positive than we anticipated, and everybody had that one marketing opportunity when corn went above 4 and traded between 4 and 4.50, right?
Right.
So it just seems like growers out there today aren't really worried about what the spot corn prices are right now, commodity prices are. There's a lot of strength in the market from what we're seeing, whether we're analyzing our own data or talking to people about what has happened on auctions today and yesterday. Two pretty wild days as far as the stock market and spread of the virus is concerned. It's interesting to see. I think there's still a lot of optimism out there because net farm income was up last year. And people are looking to actively upgrade equipment. They're all looking to be a little bit more profitable as years go on, obviously. But it's still that spring. If you can push back a retirement sale, but it's pretty hard to push back a consignment or a liquidation sale.
Yeah,
and a lot of guys are needing cash flow out of that, whether they're still trying to buy inputs or what the matter might be. But it's easy to delay a retirement sale, but it's pretty hard to delay a liquidation or consignment auction, at least from what we see.
Yeah, that's right. That's the thing. Those consignment sales are they have them, if they're a bank driven thing, they've got a certain drop dead date and it is what it is. And that's kind of the risk of running the auction market. But the flip side of that, even a retirement sale is kind of the same way. I mean, there's a lot of these things get put on the calendar, and then if that doesn't happen that weekend, then or that day or whatever it is, here we're getting really close to starting planning. Planning season is just about 30 days from being just hot and heavy, depending on weather, obviously. But
there's guys here in Iowa pulling anhydrous today.
Yeah. So now you're looking at what's that mean, what's that do, and how's that work? And if you try to do an auction of any magnitude right in the middle of planting season, depending on what's going on, it's a tough one. It's a tough thing to pull away. So it feels like if they're going to postpone some stuff, it might have to be till May or June before they really get into to that what we would normally have as a spring selling cycle. But I don't know. I'm just kind of talking here out loud. But any hints from anybody about, hey, we're going to give it a little bit before we start thinking about doing this other stuff?
As far as delaying more auctions?
Yeah.
Not yet. So there's three folks I talked to directly. So the first one was Van Atkinson auction over in Illinois, and I think he was scared. He told me he was awfully scared yesterday morning when he rolled up to the auction. I think his auction was at 10 a.m. and obviously markets open up at 8:30 our time in the stock market. He sees a big dip, and
right.
He said his first few lots he was selling over there, he was scared, but then quickly saw a lot of optimism. He had plenty of people on site for that sale and a lot of strong bidders online. Jared Sutton up in South Dakota, Sutton Auction. They had a really great sale yesterday. A lot of foot traffic, quite a few people online. And then here I got off the phone with Dan Sullivan here a few minutes ago, and he was down in Memphis, Missouri at that Ed's Machinery sale. He said record crowds. He said, and I quote, if he woke up in a coma and didn't know what was going on the last month in the market, he wouldn't have thought anything changed in the market.
Yeah.
Plenty of people online, plenty of people on site. Pretty good prices. I was reviewing some of them. There seem to be a little bit volatile prices there. But, I really haven't heard any auction or auctioneer that says, I got a big sale, we're going to totally delay it. However, we're still pretty early. Obviously, we have a national emergency.
Right.
We'll see if that pans out in rural communities.
Yeah. That's the big thing with that there, with that stuff there, is that we're really kind of we're at the very beginning of this thing. I mean, it's been the United States for a while, and Canada's kind of has got it now. Mexico's got it now. Everybody's kind of around us has got it now. 46 out of the 50 states have the coronavirus in it, by this time next week, everybody will have it in their state somewhere. All 50 states will have it. Listen to some of the doctors today during Trump's speech. They were talking about how they were expecting some kind of a crescendo, in 6 to 9 weeks from now, which kind of follows the same timeline that you saw in China. They've had the coronavirus has been there for, since January, and it kind of slowly started to spread around from there. So it's kind of a weird feeling right now, and I'm kind of sticking to I think that there's a lot of hysteria that's going along with this. I don't know that it's even so much because of people afraid of dying from the disease, but obviously there's some groups out there that are going to be more affected than others based on health and age and previous conditions and those kind of things. But a lot of it is if you get it, you're supposed to do this like a 14-day self-quarantine type of thing, and to not do anything for 2 weeks, especially if it's a business of some sort and you got to shut down for 2 weeks, that's a big deal. And that's going to be, I think that's more the fear than anything else is. And, lack of toilet paper obviously seems to be a big problem across the way, but I don't know.
There's more things I'm worried about than toilet paper.
That toilet paper thing kills me, man. People buying cases and pallets of stuff, from Sam's. It just makes me laugh.
My wife came home from Costco the other day, and she goes, "I don't know what everybody's worried about. There's pallets of that stuff everywhere."
Yeah. There's they do absolutely. Somebody did a damn good job there.
I guess if we don't have any huge news to report on the coronavirus, other than people are still feeling pretty confident going into the season. I think I saw farmequipment.com pulled out what do they have it, a farmer index survey.
Yeah. And
they claim that people are pretty optimistic. Maybe it's people still thinking China's going to start buying stuff finally, whether it's interest rate driven or what it might be. But what are you seeing out in your neck of the woods?
Well, I think you've got. So I had Sean Hackett on here earlier today, and I'm going to post this here in a little bit. But now he's talking about, here we are, everybody's kind of contracting across the world with all these different things that are happening and just all the stuff that's happening, and that sooner or later there's going to come a time when people have got to go back and replenish the stuff they've got. China's quit. They've been taking pork out of strategic reserves and all this other stuff, and they haven't really been importing a lot of stuff in. I just think that there's an opportunity coming here pretty quick when we're going to see, hey, look, okay, this isn't as bad as we thought. It's starting to kind of curtail itself here in the northern hemisphere, and in the southern hemisphere as well. Brazil and the United States are starting to calm down a little bit. And I think as this stuff happens, I think you're going to start seeing, as much as the stock market and commodity market has dropped, you're going to see it take off the other direction and go back up. So there's going to be some good opportunities there, I think, for producers to forward contract some pretty good prices. And when that happens, I think we'll see some similar situations to what we saw last year in 2019. So I think as that happens, we're going to have a good opportunity for guys to upgrade that equipment or do more stuff on auction or whatever it is. And I'm not going to say that they're going to start going crazy and paying a bunch of money for stuff, but honestly, it's going to be a slow but sure kind of approach that we've seen a million different times throughout the history of farm equipment. So I think this summer, I think we'll see some similar situations to what we saw, but we got to get there first, and then what's that road look like? So that's what's kind of, I think, worries me a little bit.
I suppose I can see that happening. I know a bigger thing that we're starting to see. We had our data and data science teams start to pull together some numbers, just what's going on in March, and looking at inventory coming across the auction block. I don't know what it is, but we're seeing a big uptick in the volume of self-propelled sprayers out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them that are that 2014 to 16 model year that have got 2,500 hours on them.
Right.
And prices around those are pretty volatile. As we sit back and, as I'm mentioning earlier, as producers are sitting back saying, how can I upgrade equipment today and try to be more profitable? Sprayer is one of those big items that they can invest in. As guys are starting to offload these, are you starting to see a big price reduction in self-propelled sprayers? In your area, we're seeing a lot of volatility in those markets on the 2,000 and 3,000 hour unit areas.
Yeah, we're seeing. I would say no to the dip in price. We are seeing the volatility. We are seeing guys that are coming to the table asking for different things than what they'd asked for before. They're getting some of these guys too. When you look at it, they get a 2,500 hour or 3,000 hour sprayer, and it was a co-op rig or something like that. That's some pretty decent technology for fairly cheap, and I think that's what you're driving. That's what I see driving the market right now. I don't see a bunch of guys totally coming to the table looking for that 500 hour sprayer. We have, don't get me wrong, we got a few guys out there that have asked about something like that, but or less than 500 hour sprayer. But it seems like a lot of the shoppers are in that 1,500 to 2,500 hour range, and they're looking to get the majority of that depreciation knocked off that machine. And but it's a price market. It's not a supply and demand market. It's a price market, and you can argue that, well, you have a supply and a demand, and it's a price-driven thing. But it seems like to me, if it gets above a certain dollar value, or below a certain dollar value, there's no one interested in them. I not see no one, but your interest goes way down, and there's just the opportunity to sell those sprayers are they're there if you got them at the right price. What kind of volatility are you seeing on sprayers?
So, for example, we were looking at one that was sold today. It was 2016 R4038 with 2,500 hours on it, about 116,000. And when we sat back and looked at the data, all of the sprayers of that make model sold between 2,000 and 3,000 hours were all between $104,000 and $155,000 in the last 7 months. And I mean, sitting back looking at that data, it sure seems like that amount of volatility with that tight hour range sold here recently seems to be a pretty big spread compared if we were to look at asset classes that are different. So if we looked at tractors in that same area, they're going to start trading a lot closer than what those were. So we're starting to see more sprayers of more variability. So I think that there's more choices coming on the market with sprayers, allowing more opportunity and people to be a little bit more picky, if you will. Mm-hmm. But we're starting to see a lot more volume come on the market as it becoming to be a more popular item on the farm. Yeah.
So the volatility, so that was between, so you had about a $51,000 spread between a 7 month period. Do you see, is it a steady to start like 7 months ago? Was it the high numbers and now you're seeing lower numbers, or is it kind of all over the place in that 7 months?
Yeah, year over year. So if we're looking at all self-propelled sprayers, year over year, March to March, the average price went from, granted, this is a broad number. Average price went from $48,000 all the way up to $63,000. So that's and then the inventory numbers last March, we're looking at 65 units that were sold in just the month of March. And here already in the month of March, from the first 10 days of March, we've already seen 73 sell. So we're seeing a lot more volume on the market and prices going up. So sitting back looking at more volume, bigger prices, what does that tell you?
So go back to your numbers there from a year over year ago. You were, what'd you say you were, 40 something to 60 something?
40, right around 47,000 up to 63,000
per unit sold.
Yep, average of all self-propelled sprayers.
I got you. Okay, so and then right now for that
and
same
volume, and the volume has almost tripled.
So what you're saying? So now that the volume that you're looking at now is higher volume, but it's also, I mean, your low side of your range now is almost $60,000 difference.
Yep.
So was there a lot older sprayers being sold last year than this year? Like a bunch of 4930 type sprayers, like a bunch of 2008, 2009, 10, something like that model sprayers?
And that's something we'd have to look at to figure out if it is old inventory or if it is aged inventory coming on the market. But that wouldn't really tell us of a price increase that's going on right now, because it's odd. Obviously, supply and demand would say supply is up, demand stays the same, you're going to have lower prices. We're seeing a big strength in that category, and inventory is there.
Yeah, it makes it sound like there's older, because that's $100,000 swing from a year over year type of deal, almost between the high end and your low end, $60,000 to $100,000 swing. So there's got to be, you got to think that there's, I mean, I hope so. There's got to be a lot older sprayers being sold at auction. That kind of makes sense. It seems like last year there were a lot more like older 2007 to 2011 model sprayers being sold they didn't have many hours on them. Hypothetically, I mean, like theoretically speaking, I mean, they were more like 3,000, 4,000 hour rigs. But can you break it out by brand? Can you see that way? By make?
I'd have to do some clicking around to pull that.
Yeah. Because that's I know I also play a role in that too. But yeah, there's a different, because if you do remember this time last year in March, it was supposed to be, what was that? Wasn't there something like phase one or something like that was supposed to be done last March, and then it didn't happen, and then the markets fell off quite a bit, and then they kind of ran back up in that weather market issue.
Market facilitation program?
No, like the China thing was supposed to kind of something was supposed to happen in March last year, and then all the rain and everything. So we had kind of that weather market kind of built in from March to about June, and then when the China thing didn't happen, then that's kind of when the market fell off. But there's also some of that going on there too. But I don't know. It does seem like sprayers are a more sought after rig than we've seen in the past. But it's also, again, it's a certain hour range that they're looking to do, because it's a price. They're looking for the dollars that are there, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Makes a lot of sense. What are other things that are standing out there to you right now?
I know I mentioned this to you last week, that the other big price change we're starting to see from is, I know it's a small category, but the balers,
baler market,
whether they're square or round balers, we're seeing a pretty big uptick in prices. Mm-hmm. I'd say volume is down. Looking at year over year, we're probably pretty steady, and certainly our data grows every year. But looking at a pretty steady to maybe a little bit down inventory, but prices, average balers, we're looking at from March to March. Right now we're at 15,000 on an average, and then we were at 12.5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still around a 20% increase.
Yeah. What about windrowers? What are you seeing there? Same deal?
Casey, I'd have to go pull that data. I don't have it right in front of me.
But that baler market is hot. I mean, there's plenty of that stuff going on. A lot of that too is because so much of the hay market was underwater last year. Some of the really key hay growing areas just didn't. It was cool. Didn't have the opportunity to make the hay that they made in years past. So that was a big deal. I know up on our northern edge of our territory into South Dakota up there, northern Nebraska, southern South Dakota, they had so much rain in the sandhills that they couldn't even get in the fields to cut prairie hay. So, I mean, stuff like that is things you don't really take into account. And the price of hay's gone up, so there's guys that have hay that are updated. So that makes a lot of sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense.
Well, I guess we've strayed away from the coronavirus.
We have done that.
No big news.
No, I think this is kind of more of a hurry up and wait scenario. I think we're going to have a lot more questions than answers, I think, before this is all done. But I do think we have just a little bit more time, especially if the stuff that's happening in China right now, where they're starting to see a decline on new cases coming through. We'll have to see what happens there, but I think there's, in May we'll be talking about something different, but we'll have to see.
I hope we are.
We'll have to see. We sure won't be talking about basketball. That's for sure.
No, unfortunately.
Yep. Right on. All right. Well, hey, good stuff as usual. We got plenty of good information here. Where's the best place for folks to go check out Tractor Zoom?
What's that, Casey? You broke up.
I'm sorry. A lot of good stuff as usual. Where's the best place to go find information about Tractor Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are interested in looking at what auctions are coming up, go to tractorzoom.com or download the Tractor Zoom app. There are a bunch of auctions going on right now. Like I had said earlier, the data team's going crazy with how much inventory is out there. I encourage you guys to go take a look. And if you want equipment prices, you can either go to Iron Comps, which helps people value farm machinery based on auction market data, or you can go to Tractor Zoom and go look at TZ Insights.
Right on, man. And if folks want to check you out on the social media, it's at Tractor Zoom on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, right?
You got it.
Right on, man. All right. Well, Kyle, it's always a pleasure to get you on here and talk to you about this stuff, and look forward to having this conversation again here in the coming weeks. So I guess till next time, I'm Casey Seymour with Kyle McMahon. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out.
Moving higher in the 21st century.